back, everybody. It is the Working Brother back at you with another talk yet again. We've got George McMillan III. It may have been a day, 2, 5 for you. It's only been like literally 13 seconds for us. And we are back to recording. George, are you happy that we're going to record some more comedy on this worst comedy show on YouTube?
I'm elated.
Elated. Last time you were fantastic, now you're elated, so that's increasing in intensity, so that's good. As usual, spending some time with the Working Brother is good for you, right?
Yeah.
We've
Absolutely.
got some memes left over from last time, and as promised, the structural, functional, and systems analysis of the grand strategies and institutional planning levels. George, do you want to give us a TLDR version of the last hour and just push us into the deep end of what we're about to talk about?
Well, what we're going to talk about, if people want a recap of what we did the last hour, they need to watch the last hour. Okay, so moving on from that, we're going to go over the different methodologies because, obviously I don't have any inside information. We're judging the effects of how the corporate analysts affect the intelligence and Pentagon analysts and how that affects policy on the in the intelligence side of the house, the military side of the house, and then the other executive branch agencies as well.
All right. Into the deep end we go in this comedy show that has nothing to do with reality. Structural, functional, and systems analysis of the grand. We already said that. The opening slide section uses a structural, functional, and systems analysis approach to examine the grand strategic plans evolve in the grand strategic plans evolve in collaboration with governmental elites and then conveyed to the governmental institutional level. Did you have a blackout, or is everything under control?
Oh yeah, somebody shut off the light. Yeah, nobody.
All right, but it wasn't a blackout.
Yeah, the purpose of the books in the thumbnail section over here is the way you compare different organizations is by looking at the structure and functions, and you're looking at feedback loops. So I just posted some major books of structural functionalism and systems analysis in sociological theory and in political science. This is one from Talcott Parsons from Harvard, Almond and Powell. Actually, my former brother-in-law was married to Elizabeth Powell, Sidney Powell's daughter. Just one of those oddball fun facts. So, and then going down to the next one.
This looks like repeated compared to your usual slides.
Yeah, well, I pulled this off from somebody drew it. Who wrote this? It's David Easton's model of political systems analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, from
what have we got here? We've got the
Michael
environment.
Geritz. Yeah, Michael Geritz did put this and posted it on the internet. So I just used his existing model rather than write up a new one because he did a good job on this.
Environment, inputs, demand support, a political system, decisions and policies.
Let's go through this.
Hold on. Outposts, outputs, and environment. And then we've got feedback at the bottom. All right, now we can go through it. So tell me about the environment.
All right, so in this case, you're talking about the multinational corporations are doing business all over the world. They have a system of analysts. Mm-hmm. And then they're talking about what kind of resources they need, how they're going to put them together, how they're going to make a product, how to distribute it, how they're going to finance each step of the way. So that system, that source of information goes to their headquarters. It's sent over to the Wall Street analysts, who are then compiling these systems of needs and then talking to the different government organizations that they interact with. And then it becomes, out of all of this, it becomes a policy. The policy gets put into play by the different governmental institutions. We talked about intel agencies, military levels, and then the different civilian agencies, both law enforcement and, and the civil ones. And then that comes into play, and then they change a policy, and a few years go by, and then feedback loop goes around again, and they change policies again to interacting circumstances. So when the environment changes, they shift strategies or keep the same strategy, but shift tactics in the environment. So you have an effect. It's an OODA loop, a feedback loop. Observe, orient, decide, and act is what that means from Boyd. So you're having this feedback loop that's occurring continuously. And yeah, it comes through the tremendous network of multinational corporations that are operating all over the world. For people to get a basic understanding of this, there's a bunch of good videos on the Dutch East India Company and, of course, the British East India Company. So that's an old school way to look back to see how this thing started and is still occurring. The feedback loop stays the same.
Yeah, no comment. Can we do international multiculturally cool meme? Have you heard of the Jaguar news? They went full woke, so now instead of calling it a Shaguar, as you pointed out, they call it a Fagwar. No, George. No response at all.
I'm not gonna comment on that. I'm just moving right along. I used to really like Jaguars. Not that I ever owned one, but the people that I was related to and worked for had lots of them, so I got to drive a lot of them.
I might have driven a Jaguar. I'm not sure if I've driven a Jaguar. If I have, it wasn't memorable. I think I might have one of those old, like, bubbly ones. In any case, understanding the sea power versus land power grand strategy dichotomy. Like episode 17 or something with talking with George. Go on, George, tell us.
Okay.
21st.
Oh,
slide.
Well, yeah. So here I'm looking at General Wesley Clark's speech. Sean Ryan does a whole bunch he does a really great show on interviewing people for 2, 3, 4, 5 hours. I mean, so he gets really in-depth interviews with a lot of military intelligence people. And lately, Tulsi Gabbard and Pete Hegseth, but a whole bunch of other people too. So it's a really good way to see, where they're at on a lot of issues. And yeah, if you watch that, the more you watch those shows and the more you look at these slide sets, yeah, you realize that even these special forces colonels are, special forces officers, they're only trained at the tactical and operational levels. In the non-special forces areas, they're trained a little bit more at the strategic level, because you got to logistically move men and material into regions, into theaters and into particular battle spaces. So they know a little bit more about the regional strategic aspect, but you really learn the higher levels of continent strategies or global strategies. No, they're not trained at all. They'll get mad at me for saying that. But the more you look at these sea power versus land power models that I built, the more you watch their videos, the more you come to the conclusion that these grand strategies are only held by a few people in private corporations. So I'm the only one that's discussing this in an open source format.
And we thank you for it. A lot of our subscribers send always their comments and their thanks to forward along to you. Sea power versus land power. Moving right along to the 22nd slide. This remedies the problem by providing the overarching architecture to people that are already familiar with the most of the pieces of the puzzle and various processes involved. In the grand strategies, if the grand strategies are being kept a secret, the counter strategy is to make the university criteria widely known. Go on, George.
Yeah, the university curricula. So I put the books where this comes from off to the right, so people can see that this information is available. You can, Americans can buy these books for 10 or 15 bucks off of, Amazon and the used bookstores.
Russians can download them. Russians can download them from the internet, from torrent sites, probably.
Well, the PDFs are out there. Yeah, people can download the stuff. But I post the books up because in a certain sequence they make sense. So people can buy them, and people can double check my work. Please do. So people need to,
if you want the TLDR version and you don't want to actually read all the books that George has read and to come up with some of these things, you can watch at least some of the talks that we've done with George to get a better idea of some of the stuff and where it comes from and how he actually is rather humble considering what he's talking about here. He mentioned before in one of the talks that he was lucky basically to have a family who had some of these books laying around, and he was exposed to them earlier in his life than most people would have been. Let's put it that way, right?
Oh, right. And if people have a whole bunch of random books, you need to read them in a certain order and make sense of it. Well, to then apply it to the real world.
Shall we move on? Did we cover the slide 22?
Yeah. So, hold on a second. Let me talk about this real quick. And 23 I'm on.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. So, I'm using structural function analysis to analyze what policies are and how it goes from the financial world analyst to the intelligence world analyst to the military world analyst and the other analysts. I'm analyzing that feedback loop with the structural, functional, and systems analysis approach, but I'm building the model itself using Hersonier's criteria for physics models. He's a Nobel Prize in game theory, shared it with Selton and Nash in '94. So I use his criteria of how to build these models. So I use one kind of analysis to analyze the system, another criteria to actually make the slide set models.
Yeah, what can I say? It's been a long time of hearing you explain it to people, so I'm all out of jokes. Are we done with 23?
Yeah, we're going on to the next one. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, this is just a brief slide of who John Hersonier was and one of the pioneers of game theory. Von Neumann Morgenstern developed game theory in the Theory of Games and Economic Behavior, 1944. That was at Princeton, and Hersonier, he left Hungary. He and von Neumann are from Jewish descent. And von Neumann, Hersonier went to Australia, and then he went to Cal Berkeley, got his PhD. He was already famous for intellect in Hungary. But, he's got a great story. He actually walked through the swamp of Hungary into Austria. So anyway, yeah, he did a lot of great work, absolutely brilliant work. So I picked up, he's in 1960 article, he wanted the social sciences laterally integrated. He talked about doing it, but never got a research design to do it. But he talked about how it should, the need for it to be done, and some of the criteria and some of the problems of non-integrated theories. So I really followed his work in building out my models. Yeah, go to the next one.
Moving along, yeah.
So yeah, you get, and then, from having different jobs all over the place, this is, on the UBT, I integrate, evolutionary theory with psychological theories, Aristotle's 6 forms of government, per capita GNP ratio, to a geopolitical model of first and second world and third and fourth world. I do that, but I also do it if countries are building shared infrastructure over international boundaries, then they are infrastructurally and informationally integrated. Then they become economically integrated. Then they become diplomatically integrated. Then they become militarily integrated. Or in a PROMESI format, it's, again, it's the acronyms are similar. It's just a slightly different, longer acronym, means the same thing pretty much. It's political, military, social, infrastructural, informational. So you're looking at the more shared infrastructural pipelines, railroads, things of that nature that a country has, and a more shared, well, it used to be telegraph lines. Now it's fiber optic cable internet lines. But the more of transportation and communications infrastructure you have, the more dime PROMESI integrated countries are. So the United States has always wanted to keep the axial ends of Eurasia in its sphere, in its alignment. So NATO in Western Europe is supposed to keep the Soviet Union, the Russians out of Europe, is supposed to keep Germany down in Europe, and is supposed to keep the United States in Europe. If the Russian natural gas pipelines go to Germany, then Russia's in Europe. The heartland is in the rimland. The heartland is in Western Europe. That pushes Germany up in Europe, and it pushes the United States out of Europe. So that's why you move the EU and NATO east to the Russian border, because it's a non-military operation. It's a civilian operation. They're using the trading bloc to put up tariff trade barriers and non-tariff trade barriers to keep Russian goods in general out. So the Eastern European countries trade west, not east. But in particular, it boils down to Russian natural gas. The West at present cannot get a cost-effective energy supply to Europe. What Mike Benz was talking about, very, very astute observation in his video, especially the one we're talking about, Sean Ryan, he correlates moving the EU east and putting the Hunter Biden and Devin Archer and those guys on the board of Burisma to jack up the prices, when the Eastern Europeans and the Central Europeans and then the Western Europeans and the Britons started complaining about the increase in energy costs, which drives up every other cost and drives up inflation. When people started complaining on that, he makes a great correlation to the increase in censorship in Eastern Europe, moving to Central Europe, moving to Western Europe, and moving to the UK, and then moving to the United States. So with the rise of populism, they say, oh, they're far right. They're, some of those ideologies that were popular during the 1930s, when it actually is people complaining about the high prices. It's just normal people. So now they have to demonize what normal working class people are complaining about and censor them. And the censorship industrial complex has just, since GWAT has really increased. I'll say it within the GWAT time frame, because you move the EU east because they're trying to control, when we look at maps, they're trying to control the whole entire European peninsula land bridge from the Baltic Sea down to the Black Sea. You want to control that whole thing. When you move into the Middle East, then you're controlling the land bridge between the Caucasus, and also the land bridge between underneath the Caucasus going to the Anatolian Peninsula, Turkey. So you're trying to cut off all the pipeline and control all the pipeline routes going to Europe from whatever land bridge routes you're talking about. So moving the EU and NATO to put up trading blocks, because it's a financial blockade you're putting up. So you're trying to control the European land bridge, and then you use GWAT to move the United States military in a military operation into the Middle East, in Lebanon, Syria, I'm sorry, Iraq. I got a message that popped up. I'm used to working in an operations center where I'm continuously having to monitor my messages. But yeah, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan in order because they want to access Central Asian, Caspian Sea area oil and natural gas. And what they really want to do is send it around underneath the Caspian Sea through Iran and then into Turkey. So that's the need to eliminate the Iranian government before Trump takes power. That's what they're trying to do. There's a whole bunch of other nuances in there. I'm going to go ahead and get into it because it is important. Trump was talking about he's going to stop Nord Stream and prevent Russians from reestablishing the Nord Stream connection with Germany. And then he also says he wants to stop the war with Iran. Well, okay, you still get the need of how are you going to supply Russian natural gas to Germany because LNG is too expensive. It's driving the German companies out of business, especially BASF, Volkswagen, well, all the car manufacturing. It's cheaper for them. We war game this back in my old Telegram channel. It's cheaper for them to move all of those companies to where the natural gas is in Asia than it is to maintain the jobs in Germany. And then once you move the manufacturing facilities closer to where the natural gas is, whether it be in Southeast Asia, getting natural gas out of the Gulf of Thailand or power of Siberia from Russia, it's cheaper to do that than leave them in Germany. So Trump does not realize yet that if he stops Nord Stream and stops the war from occurring in Iran, he then has to stop the sanctions with Russia and then stipulate that Russia trade in petrodollars. But the neocons have already put such stiff sanctions on Russia, they're already trying to go to BRICS. Trump could do this in good faith, and they might even trust Trump. But they're not going to do it because they're afraid of the next president coming in and then reversing everything. So now that Russia already has sanctions, it behooves Russia, China, and Iran to continue with their formulating BRICS. So that's going to really complicate things for Trump. And we'll see whether he actually has a plan for that or not. I know he wants to drill and increase supply in the United States, but that delivers it by LNG, which is 30% higher cost, and cannot deliver the volume. So it does not look.
Who do you think is going to come in after Trump?
Well, we'll see. I mean, we're not going to speculate on that right now.
Do you think it'll be Alex Jones? I think it'll be hilarious if it'll be Alex Jones. You think that's possible? Is he purebred enough?
No.
Grand strategic, operational, tactical, theater, strategic, and institutional level of war. These are the strategy bridge map. So George, I just wanted to flash this up for people who didn't see the details of the last installment, let's say, of these talks. We've got the Heartland map, and now we are back to these slides. So
yeah, just to finish up on 25. Yeah. So yeah, DIME analysis is diplomatic, infrastructural, informational, military, economic. PMISI is political, military, economic, social, infrastructural. I talk about integration first, informational and infrastructural, because then economic follows, and then the diplomatic, and then the political follows. That's the causal order, but the acronyms are in mnemonic systems for people to remember. SWOT analysis is strength, weakness, opportunities, threat analysis. So it's a cost, benefit, risk, reward analysis. MD&P is military decision-making process. It's COA analysis, COA development, and COA selection. Course of action analysis is COA, course of action. So you're looking at developing different policy routes and analyzing different ways of doing stuff. And then whoever the decision maker is will choose one of those courses of actions. And if that one fails, then you want to go to another course of action. So this is how you develop theoretical modeling for decision makers.
Oh, George. You remember the old days when we didn't have to worry about being a comedy show?
Right.
26.
Yeah.
Academia presents the combination.
Yeah, I had to look at it real quick.
Academia presents the combination of frameworks randomly in a compartmented format, which is followed in the institutional levels. I agree, George.
Right. So John Harsanyi in 1960 was talking about the world's getting too complicated. The frameworks need to be into an integrated causal model, which is what I've done. But since then, the left took over Marcuse's repressive tolerance, put in critical race theory. They abandoned objective measures and standards like Alan Bloom talked about in his book, Closing the American Mind. That was published in 1988. They abandoned the scientific project that Tobias Midas talked about in The Adapted Mind, the Psychological Foundations of Culture, which I tell everybody to read. It's online PDF. So they've done that. They've wiped out, they stopped the process of getting an integrated causal model when by the 70s, all the frameworks needed to complete that project were done by the 1970s. You have Gintis coming along in game theory, trying to renew the effort without knowing the history of the old efforts, and he never got anywhere either. He died a couple years back before I got to present this stuff to him. And anyway, whatever. We're moving on.
Yeah, we discussed that several times.
People don't
mentioning the full story. People can find the full story in other talks.
Yeah.
Zooming right along.
Yeah. So you have academia now that is over compartmentalized and teaching false theories that also took out the measurement systems. So now the university system from doing predictive analysis is destroyed. And then they go into a government where they're further isolated and compartmentalized. So now what does that do? That makes it at the people at the top, it makes it that much easier to manipulate everybody else. So people will be talking about, oh, I have a friend and he works in this agency or that agency, and they say this, whatever, and then I just laugh because the person is so stovepiped and fed such propaganda. The people in these government agencies really have no clue what's going on.
There's like a NASA fake moon landing joke somewhere in there, but I'm going to refrain from making it. Anyway, abstract causal models.
I actually met Dave Scott when I was a little kid. My father was friends of some of those astronauts from the Air Force.
That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it means everything. No, they were on scene in the location in the Nevada desert.
We cannot confirm or deny, and they lost all the original footage, so we'll never know. Yeah. In any case, like, share, subscribe.
Oh no, wait, no, I got it. My parents have it out back. They have it in the closet.
Don't forget, you can buy me a coffee. I'll spare you guys the full screen thing. And yeah, thanks to everyone who has and who hasn't and who's shared this terrible comedy that we do here. Abstract causal models derived from concrete phenomena. Should we get into this? We're 29 minutes in, George.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. This talks about, I had to look at the slide setup. Like I said, I did this a month ago. The importance of this is, you have the rimland versus heartland strategies of containment, and then the breakout counter strategies, right? Okay, well, what's the evidence of that occurring? Well, again, look
Are you
look where all the
joking? That's the best joke so far. What's the evidence of it occurring? I don't know. Look at the map and see where all the like color revolutions that we talked about here, and all the
yeah.
like democracies and all the terrorists and all the like fake terrorists and mujahideens, and like even Serbia's right there, and there's freedom and democracy. We need it here as soon as possible. We already got our dose earlier this century, but we need some more, I think.
Oh yeah, but just look at the moronic comments in the YouTube. People can't see the obvious.
Have you heard of bot farms? Have you heard of like intel agencies and like Brigade 77?
Look. Yeah. No, just anyway. But look at LinkedIn. No, I know about that, but I'm trying to. We need to get through with this. But yes, no, if you look at my LinkedIn page, or when I used to be on LinkedIn, if you look at the moronic comments that I get in return, these are from people that work for our government. They do not know any of this that's going on. What's the problem with that? They are GS 14s and 15s. They run the place. That is a problem, that they know none of this.
Listen.
So,
speaking as a non-government person, I've had limited interactions with government officials and government agencies and so on, in the professional sphere. But in the professional civilian sphere, as an economist, I can tell you that 98% of the people that are running the place don't know shit about what they're supposed to be running. From the educational side, from the actual implementation side, and the fact that any of them have any of the positions of power and job or whatever level in their hierarchy gives them this aura and this ego boost of having to we're better than you because I already have the job. I don't need to know anymore because I already know enough to have the job. Obviously, you know what I mean? And I find that people maybe yourself and I have a more, as you like to say, overarching understanding of some things, not so tunnel vision with the feedback loop that you mentioned a little bit earlier, right?
Well, one thing that I learned, from this little project we do on the side over here is the degree that people are in bubbles. I've worked so many different places doing so many different things because I like change and different opportunities, that I started to realize, I'm learning a lot from being in different bubbles, but other people are just stuck in the same bubble for 20 or 30 years.
That is true.
So anyway, yeah.
It's the tunnel vision that I was alluding to. Let's get back to these abstract causal models.
Yeah, so getting to number
1, I guess, why were Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan were selected?
Yeah, I kind of already went over there. Yeah, because in this...
Oh, you did. That's right, earlier.
Yeah. So they're already selected because, in that causal order, you're routing the pipelines all the way from Central Asia. I got cut off yesterday in the Felix Rec, or the other day on the Felix Rec show, and somebody in the comments section, I won't fault him for it because I got either Felix or Chris interrupted me. He said, I don't understand how Russia, China, and Iran can change everything. No, it's not just Russia and China and Iran. You have Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan all have oil. And they all have immense amount of minerals in them. So it's just, how is the sea powers going to access those countries unless they can take over Iran and Afghanistan? Now, we never could stabilize Afghanistan. We took it over and occupied it, couldn't stabilize it to build any infrastructure because every time we built roads, the Taliban would come by and blow it up. So we had to abandon that. The United States abandoned that after 20 years. But now the people or the neocons are back to trying to instigate a war with Iran, because now out of Russia, China, and Iran, they're the weakest link. But the goal is to access Caspian Sea oil in Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and in the Fergana Valley in Kyrgyzstan Tajikistan. That's what they're trying to get at. So it's not just those three countries, it's all the other stands. And then in Libya, Sudan, and Somalia, you're controlling the oil fields and the pipeline routes to the seaports. Or
you know how you say Serbia? Do you know how you say Serbia in Turkish?
No.
Serbistan.
What is that?
Serbistan.
Oh, Serbistan. Yeah.
Literally all the stands. Literally all the stands here.
Right. So, yeah, in North Africa, because General Clark, he didn't list everything in order so you can see the causal connections. It's controlling the oil fields and the pipeline routes. Yeah, Libya and Somalia are important because you want to send the pipelines all the way to Italy and Sicily underneath the sea is what they're trying to do to deliver everything to Europe. That's the key point there. Somalia, there's lots of oil and gas fields there, but you also want to control the Red Sea and the Strait of Bab el-Mandab. Okay, now
I'm with you, George. I'm with you. I'm just trying to get a world map in the background for people, but I didn't manage to do it in time. Let's keep going to, what is this, 28. Sea power and the global center of gravity.
Oh, and on the slide above, I had John Lewis Gaddis's book on grand strategies. His book on the strategies of containment and the grand strategies. Yeah, it talks about, he talks about the strategies of containment coming from George Kennan, from his article in 50 and his long telegram in 47. He really takes it over from there, but I'm focusing here on the integrated model and the maritime, riverine, and terrestrial land bridge choke points. That's what I'm focusing on. But yeah, he's been at Harvard for a long time. He basically took over, simplifying it, he basically took over from Spikeman.
Moving on, point 4.
All right. So here, the sea power banking centers do not want Russian natural gas to reach any Eurasian coastal rimland industrial strategy. Working Brother and I did several videos on that from December 22 into over the winter of 23. Okay. B, they don't want the coastal rimland industrial powers paying in non-dollars and exiting the petrodollar trading scheme. C, leaving the NATO and the Pacific First Island Chain alliances altogether. And then the effect of that would be, if it were to occur, is the global political center of gravity would shift from London and Washington to, Beijing and Moscow, but then that would include Berlin to Moscow to Beijing, Seoul, and Tokyo. So the pipeline map on the right here has the major pipelines going to the axial ends of Eurasia. One thing, since the original 5 power center strategy map did not include India, India is now a newly industrialized, went through the phases of becoming a newly industrialized country to a mature industrialized country over, since the 1950s, obviously. They're trying to block the international north-south trade corridor going through Bandar Abbas and Gwadar Port in Iran. So that pipeline shows, or this pipeline map over here shows how Russia and the heartland is integrating with all the coastal rimland industrial powers, and the neocons are doing everything that they can to stop and thwart those pipelines one way or another. So D, okay, I'm sorry, we're up to E now. GWAT Eurasian rimland wars are about blocking the pipelines shown on the map to prevent A through D.
Can we zoom into this map maybe a little bit? Yeah, we got this full screen. Put this on here to get people a better idea. So this is Druzhba. This is where that, where's Ukraine? There it is. That's where that Suja incursion is. And this pipeline actually keeps going. Some of these are the major ones. We've discussed other maps with other more detailed renderings of all the pipelines in previous talks. I just wanted to leave that up there, and I also want to flash, where is it? This up there. This is the George playlist. As you can see, there is a lot of stuff to see. So have a look at the George playlist if you haven't been here before. Yeah, what can I say? George, thanks a million for all the knowledge that you've shared with us and put here on the record. But now, moving back to this, 40 minutes in, I think we can get through this. So we've done this page.
Yeah, we'll do 10 more minutes.
All right, sounds like a plan. Let's do number 5, also known as page 29.
Or we can, let's just do these 2 points and cut it.
All right,
and
sounds
we'll
like a plan.
We'll pick up the rest another day. Okay.
We'll do a few memes, and then we'll do the rest another day.
Yeah. All right. No,
Major points.
I got to run.
Go on. All right.
Okay, so number 5. Yeah, it wants to, the point is to preserve the EU-NATO alliance in Europe and the Pacific First Island chain. So the sea power must block all maritime, riverine, and terrestrial choke points. Yeah, the reason why I'm saying this stuff is I love the Sean Ryan show, but watching the different people that are going on his show and they're taking positions into Trump cabinet, they don't know why we left Afghanistan so chaotically. They don't realize it was done on purpose. They still think that Putin attacked for no reason, which means they don't know any of this. Just to be blunt. It doesn't mean that they can't catch on. Hopefully they'll read this and then know. Or they could, of course, hire me, but, then they would know. We'll see what happens.
Link in the description to George's website in case you're looking for ways to contact him. Like, check him out there. Right, George? Anyway.
Yeah. Let's just do the last one. Let's do 6 and wrap it up. But if the sea power does that, then it's cutting, or we'll do one more. If the sea power does that, it's cutting off its allies from affordable gas via Russian natural gas via pipeline, I meant to say, which leads to the question of, if the United States stops the pipelines, then how do they replace those energy sources? And really, they're not, which is why the AfD is gaining power in Germany.
And also why Sturmer is not popular in the UK. We've got this. People can read it and figure it out. George has seen it. I'll get back to the slides because we're in a hurry. George is in a hurry.
Then you also get into why the Japanese economy is having problems. They can get energy so much cheaper. Instead of the oil and gas going from the Middle East around the Malacca Strait, going up through the South China Sea, all the way to Japan and South Korea, they could literally just build a pipeline to Vladivostok, or I've been talking about this for years now. Japan, all they need to do is just complete the 40-mile stretch of pipeline from northern Hokkaido Island to southern Sakhalin Island. And guess what? Their cost of living drops, their inflation drops, all the Japanese cars and motorcycles and appliances get so much cheaper. Same thing with Korea. Okay, building the pipeline down through North Korea to South Korea, that would take a little bit longer, but it certainly is doable within 5 years. So with China, in Japan, they were getting ready to lay that pipeline. When was that? Back in 2016.
I think we discussed that. I might leave a link somewhere.
Several times.
Definitely on that. It's definitely on that playlist. So that is that.
So we'll do this last one. The answer is they use GWatt, or they then, since the nation building program didn't work in the initial phases of GWatt, they then used the Arab Spring to destabilize more countries in Africa and the Middle East. to try to get that natural gas into Southern Europe. And that still has not worked for a lot of different reasons. Yeah, we'll end it there. We'll pick up on 7 next time.
All right. Excellent. George, thank you for sparing the time away from home because you are on the road.
Yeah.
We've got, let's see here, one last meme as I put some music for the outro. Everybody who's new here, hi, welcome. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you for sticking around to the end, and see you soon. Just because you fit in doesn't mean you're in the right place. Remember that. Everyone, peace. George, thanks again. Catch you later.
Yeah.